What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. And I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And I host the only online conversation in the world for dads and fathers that is sponsored by Dove Men Care. It's also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. And through that collaboration last year, I was able to reach out to over 100,000 fathers around the world last year. And as always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. And if you don't know the face that's beside me, you're going to get to know it. He's going to be with us on a ray, and he's always on the go. The man is because he's serving people. He's serving people. And we have back Dr. Robb Kelly. If you didn't watch the first camp conversation, your wood is wet. That's what I'm going to say. And Robb has helped over 7,000 people around the world recover from drug and or alcohol addiction. And this is such a prevalent topic all the time, but especially in the last 2 years, it's really, really increased. So we're very blessed, highly favored, and a magnet for miracles. I have Dr. Robb Kelly back. Dr. Robb, how you doing this morning?
Dr. Vibe doing very good this morning. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, guys. Good to be back. It's going to be a great show. Stick around.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? I tell people we don't do shows at the Dr. Vibe Show. We do conversations. We do epic conversations. And really, really happy to have you back. And today we're going to be talking about, and if you're watching live, please feel free to, if you have any questions, any comments, please send them in. One of the great followers here, William Martinez from the Toronto area. Greetings, Dr. Vibe and Dr. Robb Kelly. Thank you, William. Appreciate that. Love it. Today, we're going to talk about, and big shout out to Courtney. Courtney makes the world move in Dr. Robb's world, and she's making my world move in a good way because she does makes all the pieces happen. So she does the back end stuff and she makes it happen. So shout out to Courtney. And when I communicated with Courtney saying, what does Dr. Robb want to talk about today? And she came back to me, addictions objectively. I'm going, and I had to measure back, really? Those two words, addictions objectively? I said, you know what? He said, yes. And so, hey, when someone knows more than me, I shut my mouth and listen. That's what I've been told. So, Dr. Robb, let me ask you first, for our audience, what is your definition of addiction when it comes to drug and alcohol?
Okay, so it differs slightly in the Oxford English. The Oxford English Dictionary says that alcoholism is someone dependent upon alcohol. And the reason it says that is because it was probably printed well before we started to look at the brain science of it. We've started to look at neural pathways, addictive personalities, and brain. And the alcoholics are born, but drug addicts are made. That's the biggest difference. I know that's.
Hold on now. That's interesting. Just right there, you got to expand on that right there.
Well, if you think you're an alcoholic, first of all, one quick test. When you take the first drink, can you stop? And if it's no, then it's the only self-diagnosed illness in the world, so I can't tell you are. But what happens if you look back in your family, you can trace alcoholism, not so much with drug addiction. So what happens is alcoholics are born this way. It's hereditary. It's passed down. It's a generation thing, partly to do with the addicted brain, partly to do with a gene in the brain that's allergic to ethanol in alcohol. Now, you see, most people think, I'm allergic to alcohol. Not true. Specifically, it's the ethanol in the alcohol. So passed down from generation to generation. So I'm either born with this or I'm not, because it can skip a generation. So drug addicts, kind of the same, but not born this way. So they may be born with the addictive brain, which is obsessed about certain things. But when they take the first drug, they can stop and never touch again, thinking it's bad. When I touch the first drop of alcohol, all bets are off. Now, my alcohol and my misery and self-sabotaging neural pathways and the gene that's developed from my father all get together and go, wow, this is amazing. And what it does is it sets off, might be a year, 10 years, 50 years. It sets off a chain reaction that one day I'm either going to get help or it's going to kill me. And I'd say about 90% of people die of this disease and 10% get help, because there's a lot of things going on in their head when it comes to alcoholism and addiction. And before I get into that, I want to say good morning to William and Sandy. Thanks, Sandy. Valium, and I was there as well, drinking as well. So what happens over a period of time is my brain gets used to the alcohol, and when I try and get sober, and here's the interesting part, you know, when you're doing something wrong, everybody knows when they're doing something wrong. There's that gut feeling. It's like, oh yeah, I'm doing something wrong. I shouldn't be doing this. Even when I take drugs, I'm doing something wrong. I might be taking more than the doctor give me. I know I'm doing something wrong. It's a human natural occurrence. When I relapse and drink alcohol, that relapse vibe and talk in my own head is the same as the tone that I say to myself, let's go and buy my wife some flowers. Let's go and drink some alcohol today. It's the same voice. It's a trusted voice. The tone is exactly the same as if I'm doing a good deed. That's one of the reasons why people relapse and relapse and relapse. It doesn't say, hang on a second, you're doing something wrong here, so we get a choice. The choice is taken off us. Now, drug addicts can take enough drugs to abuse drugs and then become addicted to drugs. So that's the difference that most people don't know. But you have to remember, over 30 years of research that we've been doing, and 30 years of tests and experiments and experience shows us this. And when you look at neuroplasticity as a whole, when it comes to redirecting neural pathways, it strengthens our research that we're born alcoholics, we can make ourselves drug addicts.
Wow, you dropped so many knowledge bombs.
Boom.
Yes, I know. But then let me ask you something. Can someone, you said the alcoholism, and correct me if I'm wrong because you're the expert, is something we're born with. But can't someone also become an alcoholic?
No. See, there's another myth. I don't want to, if I drink too much alcohol, I might be an alcoholic. No, you are abusing alcohol. There's the difference. So there's a difference between someone who abuses alcohol and the alcoholic. Okay, let's say really quick, Friday night, the abuser sent him to jail. The alcoholic sent him to treatment on a Friday night. There's a difference between them two. And the difference is that you can't drink yourself into becoming an alcoholic. It's generation, it's hereditary. It's passed down from generation to generation. So you can drink too much alcohol. You may call yourself an alcoholic. The doctor might call yourself an alcoholic. You know, it doesn't make any difference. When I put alcohol in my body, the first mouthful or second mouthful, something happens to me, both central nervous system and the obsessive mind that tells me I want more. And I can't stop. The abuser of alcohol, given a sufficient reason, the doctor says, if you don't stop, Johnny, you might die. Or the wife says, if you don't stop drinking, they can control or stop. So that's a big myth that, you know, I might be an alcoholic. No, not if it's generation, it's in your family. If you can't trace alcoholism whatsoever in your family, then you have to question yourself. Now, remember, it's the only self-diagnosed illness in the world. So you really need to look at the past and the trauma from the past, which is another indicator that the trauma and the present, when I first start really drinking, is a process. So the alcoholic who abuses alcohol, because we're all alcoholics, abuses alcohol, there'll be stages and continuing stages of heavy drinking or abusive drinking. With alcoholism, we pass through the stage of liking it and then obsessing over it and then needing it. So you can't crave for something that's not already in your body. That's another thing. Oh, I'm craving for alcohol. No, that's not true. The craving comes from within the body, the central nervous system. What happens is you have that mental obsession that says to you, I'll get away with it this time. It won't be so bad this time. Nobody's going to know this time. It's all lies from the brain. That's the difference between the both.
Wow. Like you've just flipped out a thought process that I've had for many years.
Yeah. And that's our research, tried and tested. And it's proven now, you know, we've sent our test results over the last 4 or 5 years. And you know, it obviously there's a lot more with other people joining in. But yeah, that's the deal. And, you know, whether you're abusing alcohol or whether you're an alcoholic, they may show up the same. Both are getting drunk for no reason at all during the day or whatever it may be. But there is a difference.
And then you said, a drug addict, it's not hereditary. They become one.
Yes. So they're the guys, possibly not always, with the addictive personality. That's something that's created, and that also can be passed down. So there's a lot of puzzles going on here. There's a lot of numbers included. So the alcoholic who never touches alcohol because father drank too much, or they're the guys running, and I'm just mentioning companies, I'm not relating these. They're the guys running the multi-million-dollar companies, the Apples, the Googles, for instance. I'm not saying they are. They're the guys that never touch it. Okay. So what happens is when someone takes the first drug, who has kind of the addictive personality, but not all in, then obviously they take more and more and more and become dependent upon that. So there's the difference. That my mind is different to a drug addict mind. Now, a drug addict also may be an alcoholic. So it's important that we look at trauma, and it's important that we look at our generational. If father was mother, sister, brother of theirs, uncle, auntie, grandfather, somewhere in that generational look back will be someone who suffers from alcoholism. 100%. Try. If it's not, you need to question if you're an alcoholic or a heavy drinker. There is a difference.
How many? This is what you're saying right here. We can land. We're going to land on this more for a little few minutes. When you share that perspective, how many people does that flip their thought process? Like you've just flipped mine.
100%. 100%. Whenever I talk or seminar on TV or books that I've wrote, they go, "Oh my God!" But what happens is once we explain to them and once we show them it's a generational thing, then things start to make sense. Like my brother and sister are not involved with alcoholism. It skipped them too. It hit me, unfortunately, or fortunately, as I say today. So when you explain in detail of the trip and everything that happens from the first drink to the drug addict taking the first drug, everything makes sense. So here's another, and I hope you guys are listening out there. Alcohol has 1% to do with alcoholism. That's why you can't drink yourself into becoming an alcoholic. It's all to do with the mind. So it's all to do with the trauma, the self-sabotage. Alcohol is a symptom. Alcohol is something I found that I can connect with from the very first drink. If you ask most alcoholics, can you remember your first drink? I've had people at the age of 9 months going, I remember my dad, Anki, putting a tissue and putting it in my mouth so I could go to sleep. Normal people don't remember that. Alcoholics do. So it's stuff like that I explain. They go, oh my goodness, I remember when I was 6, I had a sip of my dad's beer. It just felt amazing. Normal people don't do that. When somebody takes a drink, they go, oh yeah, I like this, so we'll drink a bit more tomorrow, we'll get out of our head. Yeah, alcoholics don't do that. First of all, they hate the taste of alcohol, most people, when they get to the stage. And secondly, we don't drink to feel good, or we don't drink to party. We drink to get away from my self-sabotaging thoughts because I hate myself that much. It's a generational thing. So 100% of people go, what? And then we prove it. And then they go, wow, that makes so much sense. Now, the heavy drinkers can't really relate to that. It's like, well, my father wasn't doing this. I didn't really do that. When I drink, I go out to drink and that's it. Alcoholics don't do that. Alcoholics can go through the day with having a couple of months sober, and all of a sudden, a thought pattern will hit them that wants to self-sabotage, especially if you're doing really good since your last relapse. What happens then is alcoholics do not have a choice whether they drink or not. In actual fact, when the self-sabotaging neural pathways come, and it's a few days before we drink the alcohol, by the way, it's virtually impossible to change them thoughts around unless you've had some kind of treatment or knowledge. And we did our research, and we say 7.3 seconds is usually the way you can turn things around with the heavy drinker or the alcoholic once gone through a program. Well, we can now say, I have a choice to do this. But without treatment, alcoholics don't have a choice. And people think we do, and we don't. Well, if you could just stop for your children, Dr. Robb, if I could have done that, I'd have done it from day one. In actual fact, when my first child was born, I took a Bible to the hospital. I put the hand on the Bible. I swore to my wife, to God, and my newborn child that I'd never drink alcohol again. It was the worst 4 hours of my life because that's all I lasted. So people who say that, God bless you. I would, suggest you get some more knowledge around that before you blast somebody out for getting drunk while they're in charge of the child, because it's such a misunderstood disease.
Wow. Like, What we could stop right here. That's just such like dropping knowledge bombs as usual, Dr. Robb. Let me ask, at addictions objectively, what do you mean by that?
You have to look at some addictions and not all blaming with the one tar brush. So some addictions are healthy and we can turn our lives around. And what happens is once we get rid of the compulsion to drink, the thought patterns, and change them, we've got to look at what alcoholics and drug addicts can really do with their life. So I look at my alcoholism and I don't go, oh my God, that was horrible. I go, oh my goodness, thank God I went through all that, because it gives me the experience to move forward. So there's a great saying in the 12-step rooms, and that is, our past is our greatest asset. And so it is. So we have to look at objectively and go, hey, it's not all bad. It's, you know, if you get treatment, if you get to the right people in the right treatment center, very, very difficult to get to these days. Most of them are businesses that need to make money. So if you get the right stuff, you can turn all this around. So then we look at alcoholism as a positive being, a state of mind. Is I came from homelessness to what I am today. For those who have never heard my name, the last program went out to 18 million. I have books out there. I've worked with surgeons, pop stars, A-listers, road sweepers. I've worked with anybody over the last 30 years, probably around 7,000 people, because we used to do 600, 700 people at a time sometimes back in Manchester when we were really rocking and rolling. So you have to look at addiction. I look at addiction and alcoholism today as a positive thing. Now, I know that some people out there are going, well, drugs are just the same as alcohol. Yeah, you know, that thought pattern is good. You know, if you need to go to a different 12-step meeting that you go to with drugs, that's great. Welcome in, come on in. But when it comes to biologically, there is a difference, unfortunately, whether you like it or not. That's why in the early days when they wrote that book, the big book, for those people that know, there was a distinction between drugs and alcohol, because they knew back then. I don't know how, because when you find out 10 years ago, but they knew back then there was a difference between the both. And if you look at the very early edition, it was one of the chapters there is Dr. Alcoholic Addict. And they actually took that out because as we found more about alcoholism as a whole, we found out they slightly differ, but not to the layman, not to the normal eye. They present themselves the same. So, you know, using neuroscience, it's slightly different.
Wow. Well, there's just so many different thought processes going on in my head right now. I want to jump into another conversation topic. What has the pandemic done through your lens in regards to drug and alcohol addiction?
So personally, I mean, we have 5 offices around the world, so we've seen kind of different angles from different countries. Let me talk about Texas real quick, because that's where I am, San Antonio, Texas. Been here for, been in Texas for 14 years, 15 years. So let's look that alcohol sales went up by 82%-ish. And just these figures were changing. The last research we did was about 6-7 months ago. So alcoholism sales gone up, separation with families have gone up, abusive relationships have scaled, depression is now setting in with most people, and alcoholism and drug addicts and clients treatment centers have been going up. Personally, we had 100% spike with our business. So I'm like a concierge psychologist. I'm not a medical doctor, I'm a psychologist. I have two PhD in psychology and behavioral science. So what we have to look at is it's done a lot of damage, and it will continue to do a lot of damage because we haven't seen the aftermath right now and the full extent to what's happened. So it's a bit like when smoking first came out. In fact, in the early days, we used to give kids, I had these candid cigarettes, which was amazing. So research many years on, when we really went against tobacco and started suing these guys, was that 70% of people who were given, or children were given these candy cigarettes, became smokers, just like the mum and dad. So I have to look at today, 2 things. One, the iPhones, the iPads and all that addiction there, which is going to be absolutely mind-blowing over the next 10 or 20 years because nobody's learning any real social skills. So we need to look at various things, and we haven't seen it yet. People are still working from home. People are still not going out, to offices and meeting people. Now, if you look at, and again, research we've done, if you look on death row, for instance, we did a quick study. Most people on death row, by the time they got to the injection or the chair, were almost insane. And the reason from that is because of the isolation. So isolation is no good for the human being. We have to have conscious communication, and we have to have that physical touch and being of the presence and the energy swapping. Once that's taken away, crazy things start to happen to psychologically in the central nervous system as well. A few people that I know of have had difficulty going back to the office after 18 months working from home because they've got so used to getting nervous going back. What's it going to be like? So yeah, there is going to be an aftermath regarding the pandemic, and along with other things. But yeah, that's going to be the main thing. And we don't see it straight away, like the cigarettes. We don't see it.
Right.
You know,
are you open? Because we've got a question here from William saying, Dr. Robb Kelly, I'm on meds, which negates me from drinking. Also, my faith is against it. Do you still recommend getting educated on alcoholism and drug addiction?
Hey, good morning, William. Great question. If there's alcoholism in your family, then do. So here's another piece of knowledge that we've done. If there's no alcoholism in your family, and you kind of think you have an alcohol drug problem, and you're taking meds to negate that, that's great. Okay, but, and here's the big but, and this is where I piss most pharmaceutical companies off, is if you're the real alcoholic, alcoholism in your family, you have a real problem with alcohol, no drug on earth is going to stop you drinking. It has to come from internal. It has to come from neural pathway change of the way we think and the way we feel. That's where the work is. But William, here's the deal. I would say yes. You know, start reading them a bit. Send me an email. I'll send you some stuff. You know, contact us. We can talk together. But yeah, because what happens is someone's going to come to you one day, William, go, hey, William, how did you do this? What's it about? What is this? The more educated we get, the better we can speak to people. So if you're taking meds which refrain you from drinking, there's obviously something there in the past that's made you seek that treatment. So yeah, it's just a myth that if you drink alcohol, you become an alcoholic. So in this game, it's all about knowledge. It really is. I mean, they brought anti-abuse out many years ago. I don't know, 70, 60, 70, don't quote me on this. But I remember taking anti-abuse or the similar back in the UK. Now, it worked for a few days, but once my neural pathways click over to self-sabotage, I drank on that stuff many, many, many times and nearly died. Normal people don't do that. Normal people go, hey, I'm taking this. If I drink, I might die. I'm not drinking. Alcoholics don't do that. They just drink regardless. So education for those either with or without family history of alcoholism and especially drug addicts these days, because they're also misunderstood. There's so much powerful drugs today. Crack cocaine, from the first hit, you are done. We don't hear from many people who's hit a crack pipe and come back from that, because it's so powerful. It takes over your whole being. It takes over the whole central nervous system, and it enters, for me, and this is just my opinion now, we're not talking about research, it invites the devil in, and you're usually done once that happens. And there's a certain point, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, but there's a certain point where your higher power goes through the window and you literally can't be helped once you cross a certain stage, and we all kind of know what stage that is.
Wow.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and William, if you're watching live, please add on to the comment, your comments if you have any more questions. But great answer, Dr. Robb. I want to ask, going back to the objectively.
Oh, just let me add there a second.
Yeah,
sorry.
Go ahead, please.
William,
do.
I've just looked at your bottom. Also, my faith is against it. If you have a strong faith, God will take care of you. I wanted to add that as well, because God took the compulsions away from this chronic alcoholic who was homeless and almost dead. So yeah, if you have a real good faith or a spiritual journey, that's the connection as well as research. Okay, sorry about that.
No, hey, absolutely. Thank you for adding that in. It's really important. When we look at addictions objectively, how many of us do that? Right? Because that term really stuck out in my mind, saying how many people really look at addictions objectively, or do they look addictions judgmentally?
Judgmentally is the key word, unfortunately, because what happens is it's still a dirty word. So I work with lots of A-list stars, as well as surgeons and people in the community that are high profile. And I would say 1% after treatment with us will come out and go, hey, listen, I went through this program. I suffered from addiction or alcoholism, because it's still a dirty word and it's the most misunderstood disease. So people always judge us, always. And this is why, and this again is my personal story. This is why when I go and buy that new car that I've saved up for the last 50 years to go and buy, it's a 6-figure car, and I walk in, I'm not walking in my scrubs, I'm not walking in a suit and tie, I'm walking in with a almost dirty pair of sneakers with stuff like this on, because I don't want you to judge me for who I am. So when I walk in like this, I want you to know that I'm just as capable of buying that car over there as the guy in the suit, because most of my life I was judged. I was judged when I couldn't control my kids. I was judged when they took the kids off me. I was judged when I became homeless. I was judged, when I was on the streets begging for money. People judge me all the time. And one of my journeys is when I do seminars, I put like a vagrant, a tramp with a bottle in his hand, and the picture beside it is a woman in a business suit. And I always ask the audience, which is the alcoholic? And 9 out of 10 times, everyone would say, it's the guy with the bottle in his hand, obviously. And my reply is, actually, they are both alcoholics. Just that one has treatment and can change. Everyone can change. Everybody can change, by the way, and become successful. And the other hasn't got there yet. And whether he gets there, I don't know. But awesome. Awesome, absolutely.
Wow. When you help, because I don't like to say you do treatment, I like to say you help your clients.
Yes, me too. Yeah, it's good.
How much time do you have to spend, if you get any time to spend, with either family, or do you keep the family out of it and you just stick with the client? Because again, I'm thinking about this addictions objectively.
Great question.
So because I think it's a communal thing, not an individual thing.
It is. And again, going through the years and years, we never did until we did more research. And the research shows from our own research is that the alcoholic, let's say it's the guy, it's not always, but just for instance, has a 60% chance of getting better quicker than they do when the family's involved. So let me explain this. So for those guys that can see me, let's say the alcoholic house is here. That means dad alcoholic, mom, and 18-year-old and a 15-year-old in the house. What we do, or what many people do, is take the alcoholic out and they stick him in this house here. Now, this house that daddy's come from speak Japanese, and we teach him a different language, let's say English, okay? So we take this Japanese-speaking guy and we teach him a new language, recovery language, and he starts to get well, enjoying life. Then we stick him back into the house that speaks Japanese. What's he going to do? He's going to start speaking Japanese. So that's the basis around what we do. Is the wife, for instance, not always, the wife has to be involved in the program. Otherwise, we will not take you on. And anybody over the age of 18 living in the house needs also to become part of the program. Now, it doesn't mean every day like the alcoholic, because it's a 90-day program, an hour every single day. But we do 2 hours a week with them during. So that at the end of the day, the wife of the alcoholic, for instance, she suffered trauma and PTSD from the drinking and the abuse and the verbal abuse, which is more damaging than physical abuse, would you believe? The bruises and scars go real quick, but the mental torture doesn't, and the name calling and stuff like that. So it's really important that we look at the family system as a whole. And we are adamant that if you come on and the family is not interested, then we unfortunately will pass you on to somebody else.
Wow.
Especially if you stay. Now, if you leave the house, splits up separation, that's fine. If you're living on your own, that's fine. But when it comes to returning back to the family house, everyone's got to be involved, because just let's take the wife, for instance, the mind, the brain does not know the difference. And with the greatest respect to our troops, thank you for your service, between somebody coming back from war and somebody living with an alcoholic in a disruptive house. Both are walking around on eggshells. Both never know when it's going to kick off, and they don't know if they're going to survive that day. So that's another thing that new research shows. So the woman needs help. And when the wives get on, they say the same thing to my psychotherapist every time. Okay, let me tell you about Johnny. He's like, whoa, it's got nothing to do with your husband. It's got everything to do with you. Why have you put up with this? Why have you allowed this to go on? And why haven't you walked out the door? 9 out of 10 times goes back to dad being abandoned. So the wife's not going to leave because the abandonment issues start to come in. So it's so complex when you really get into alcoholism and addiction as a whole, way beyond the drug and the alcohol.
It's deeper.
It's so much deeper. And we talk about the trauma. Alcoholics hear things differently than drug addicts or normal people do because of the hereditary system and the brain mapping from birth. It's like me and my brother stood on the kitchen table, 12, 13-year-olds. My mum walks in and she says, "Get down off that table, you stupid idiots, get down." My brother laughs and jumps off. I freeze. The reason why I freeze, because what I've heard, and every alcoholic will confirm this, "Get down off that table, you stupid idiots," is what I hear. Because everything I hear and see and do and feel, I'm going to self-sabotage.
Wow. Wow. This is huge. This is really, really, really huge. Do men and women handle the addictions objectively differently? Because you mentioned how sometimes you'll have a wife of a client say, "Well, let me tell you."
I think they do. Yeah, definitely. And what tends to happen, let's say with a wife, for instance, is that she's held on so long to try and change this person. And every single time, if treatment's not involved, it fails and fails and fails. So what happens is they first of all, when the husband comes on and go, "Okay, that's it, I'm done," they're wary at first. And then after, in the early days, and they get all excited that dad's back to normal, everything's going to be okay. And there's another letdown, another letdown, another letdown. So the objective is that the way to look at alcoholism is, first of all, it's not really a problem. Then it becomes, "Oh my God, he can't stop drinking." And then it becomes a fight for your life inside the house. We have just had a past client who has more money than anyone could imagine, who just can't seem to get it. And we told the wife a year ago, so long he's been with us, that if he relapses, he needs to get out of the house. And her answer, because I said it always end up in violence, and the answer was, my husband has not got a violent bone in his body. Last night, when he came home drunk, she was almost punched to death. She had to be taken to the hospital. Now, here's the crazy part, guys. When the guy comes out of his blackout in a day or 2, 3 days, whatever, he's not going to remember that. So 9 times out of 10, it always ends up like that. It ends up as a shove, first of all, then it ends up as a push, even harder, and then fists will swing. And that's the sad part of not getting help, is most alcoholics will say to you, "Well, I'm not harming anybody, I'm just harming myself." That is not true. Alcoholics are like a contagious illness. We infect everybody we come across while we're drinking. Every single person we come across gets an insult or something like that, because we're just not in charge of our thoughts.
Let's flip on though. What is the impact for those who have the drug addiction? Is there violence involved there too? What sort of not positive effects to themselves and potentially others do those experience? Are they different than those who are addicted to alcohol?
They are, depending, because there's so many drugs. There's only one ethanol. So we can track that real good. There's so many drugs. Marijuana, I've never had a problem with. I've had problems who wants to stop. It's not a problem. Never really had any real bad stuff happening. Heroin, one stick, boom, they're gone to sleep. And next minute, they know they're out looking for it. So nothing there. Crack cocaine, they're so high, energetic. It's too early. It's too early in our research to say that. But because you can drink alcohol and go into blackout and still act normally, sound normally, behave normally for a period of time, that's how you know he's a real alcoholic.
Wow. That's this is
crazy, huh?
Yeah, there's so many things I really appreciate, but the research end is really good. You've invested into the research, you have the facts. Not only you have living testimony because you've been through it yourself, but your organization has done the research to back it up.
Yeah. That's the deal, because it changed so much. When I first got clean and sober off the streets, it intrigued me. It intrigued me why a normal guy who went to college, who's you know, a psychologist and a behavioral scientist, how it could take me to the streets. Well, I wasn't a behavioral scientist. Sorry, I was a PhD psychology. How it could take me to the streets, lose my kids, wife, houses, cars, mom and dad, brother, sister. Everyone disowned me. So when I started to get well, that intrigued me, I think, more than anybody else. And what happened to me is I had a huge spiritual awakening. So I know a lot of people haven't got the money or time to research, and there's no money in recovery. So the pharmaceutical companies and the treatment centers are not going to help you get sober, because they can't sell you a 30-day treatment plan or a pill you can take. So what happens is the research goes by the way. You know, there's just nobody's really interested because nobody's got any grants to research that. I was adamant that I wanted to get to the bottom of what caused so much damage with my kids and my ex-wife, so much damage with my parents. In fact, my mom died of cancer a lot earlier because the worry she had with me every single day. She couldn't sleep, she couldn't eat when I was on the streets. So I was adamant that I'm going to spend the rest of my life studying and finding out what the hell's going on. And that's what I did. And all these years on, I'm still excited about the recovery side as I was from day one, because I've seen so many successes. I've seen so many miracles, and everybody can get well. Unless you have permanent brain damage, then we've got to look at that. But everybody who has a problem with alcohol or drugs, alcoholic or not, drug addict or not, can get well, better your life, and have a life beyond your wildest dreams. Don't even tell me you can't, because you can. And if you're sat at home listening to this or watching this, and you go, yeah, but you don't know, blah, 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 and I'm not good enough, I can never do that. First of all, I want to apologize to you, because somebody's put that there. We are born with $1 million minds. Remember when we were kids kicking the ball in the street or throwing a ball? What do you want to be, Johnny? I want to be a scientist. What about you? I want to fly a rocket. What happened to them dreams? Our family and society kicked it out of us. Don't be silly, Johnny. You can't go to college. Yes. We are born with $1 million minds. Stop taking advice of 10-cent minds. They're never going to get you there. Use that $1 million mind that higher power gave you, and go out and do what you're supposed to be doing in this life. You know, that might be the 9-to-5 job. It might be a part-time job. I scrubbed factory floors. That was my time to do that. But, you know, when you look as well, I can never be president. They used to tell me 10 years ago. Well, I beg to differ today. Despite your looks on politics, we have a business from around the country. Don't tell me you can't do anything you want to do, because you can. Research shows in quantum physics and also in psychology that what we vision in our mind, we can hold in our hand. And the only person stopping you from doing that is you.
Well, I'm not going to keep you much longer, because you always got things to do, but I always want you to, and that was a great closing word, but if you have any other final words you'd like to share with either those who are addicted to drugs or alcohol, or those who have loved ones that are addicted to drugs and alcohol, we can just close out with that. Any final words you'd like to give, because I don't think we need to go any longer, because you were just dropping knowledge bombs all over the place.
Lot to take in, especially for the watchers and listeners. But listen, guys, if you're worried about a loved one and you think they're drinking, just check what they're doing. Watch for the unkempt, watch for lateness, watch for not turning up for family event, in the bedroom alone. Look at that stuff. People say to me as well with drugs, well, I don't really want to go through his room. Get through his room. I would rather you find out at the age of 12 than he'd be homeless at the age of 21 and die. You know, it's your right under your house to check if you have a suspicion. But look, I know what it's like, guys. It doesn't make a difference where I am now, what I do, and all that, the TV and all that stuff. Let's forget about that for a second. If you are really struggling at home and you have nobody to call, or if you're a mom or dad and you don't know where to turn to, you can call me direct on my cell phone or text me. The number's put up, 214-600-0210. Now, this is not for a 40-minute chat or advice or information. This is for them guys or them parents or brothers or sisters who either are struggling and need a way out, or they need some advice. Advice, 10-minute pep chats are all free of charge. We will never try and sell you our services. Never try and do that. This is not in our nature. But what we are here for is I want to be there for the mums and dads, because nobody was there for my mum and dad. And it affected them so much that a 5-10 minute chat with me or my wife, what harm is that? You know, you'll be doing us the favor because we like helping people. So that's out to offer, guys. Don't sit there worrying. Don't sit there, no advice, because advice and information is powerful. Very, 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 very powerful in this industry. And the knowledge, just like William said, the knowledge behind it all, you know, just Google my name or put my name into any search engine, Dr. Robb Kelly, 2 B's, ROBBKLOY, and I'll come up and look at some of the stuff that I've done, look at the informational videos out there and visit the website. There's some great stuff on there. Again, don't call me personally, if you're looking for services. You call the office. I have nothing to do with that. This is my personal cell phone number. This is only to help people.
Thank you. And what I'm going to do is, as Dr. Robb mentioned his website, I'm just going to show it really quick for everyone to take a look at, and just show the face of it when you go to, this is what you will see when you go to his website. So I'm just going to put it up right now up on the screen. Yeah, the Robb Kelly Recovery Group. So if you go to, and I'm going to put the website here just at the bottom. There you go. So it all there, and he also offered his personal number, and I did have a conversation with Dr. Robb ahead of time, and there's a young man that I've been mentoring over the last year or so, and he is addicted to marijuana. He's addicted, and he's basically going to school in the Toronto area by himself. He has no family in the Toronto area. So I've asked Dr. Robb if he could take 5 minutes of his time for that pep talk that he just mentioned, and he said he'd be more than happy to. So definitely, you know, you don't get help like that a lot of the times, folks. So please take advantage of it. You know, evaluated experience. He lived it. He's recovered from it, and he's helped over 7,000 people. And you hear what he also said? He's more excited now than he ever is to help people.
Yeah.
Where do you get that? People that are excited to help people.
And I don't mean this anything on ego or anything, but this is a rare chance to speak to somebody as high up as me, if you want to, in the addiction industry, because you always speak to, you know, other people, but this is direct to me. Like I say, it's my cell phone. Text me first of all, because I'm obviously busy, but
absolutely
take it. Don't think, oh, I can't text Dr. Robb. I'm the guy on the streets, remember? Forget about all this. I'm the guy on the streets, in the trenches with you guys, period.
Just put it up there one more time. And just to make everyone aware, we're going to be doing these conversations periodically. So if you have questions, you can send them to Dr. Robb. You can send them to me. And certainly we're going to make this somewhat of a regular conversation. And I have some ideas in order to help it and get it out to more people, because I'm sure Dr. Robb will agree with something I learned a long time ago. The more people you help, the more people that need help.
Definitely.
So, Dr. Robb, as always, thank you for taking time in your positive, productive schedule for us. Always looking forward to what you have to share, and you're from your heart, and you're very passionate, and we need that passion.
Thank you, Dr. Five. Great to be here, guys. Remember, always, have a fantastic day.
Love it. And big thanks to Courtney, as always. All right, it's Dr. Vibe, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner, given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association, and I host the only online conversation world for dads and fathers that is co-sponsored by Dove Men Care, and it's also sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. As always, I'd like to thank everyone who watches this live and on the replay. I'd like to thank, big thanks to William and Sandy. And Sandy, have not heard from her in a long time, so I really appreciate her taking the time to watch. And hey, if you have any questions for Dr. Robb, please go to my website, thedrvibeshow.com, and you can send contact information there. I'm going to see if I have my email address. You can email me directly. Let me just see if I can find it. Going to go really, really quick. Yes. Here's my website. Here's not my website. Here's my email address. dr.vibe at thedrvibeshow.com. So if you have questions for Dr. Robb, if you have questions for me, if you have questions for anything about Dr. Vibe, that's where you go. So as always, I close out with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. And two last things. Remember to give yourself grace. And remember, don't manage your time, manage your energy. God bless, peace be well, keep the faith, and walk good.